Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So you're asking here about the halal mortgage, the Islamic finance option. I'm not going to mention the name of this particular investor. They call themselves investors. Some of them are banks, but really they're investors because you enter into a partnership, and more on that later. So you're asking about that. Now, here, the thing is, I just want to explain one thing, and we need to have an introduction. I'm very sorry about the length of this audio. I can apologize from the very beginning because it requires a lot of detail to be explained. When it comes to finance, every single person needs to review his situation. And this is what I feel. I mean, some of the Islamic councils, Majma al-Fiqhiyya and others, they've looked at these issues and they've said, okay, it's halal if these conditions are met, or it's haram flat out. That is because an answer needs to be given and the Muslim Ummah needs an answer. As for the application of such research or fatwa, then a person, I feel, of the view that a person must confirm and ask the people of knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. If you don't know whether you should engage in this particular kind of a contract, then confirm it and ask. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us to read research. He doesn't tell us to go into websites or follow, what we think is okay, or even worse, follow our desires. No, the command here is فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ. In the Shifa al-Su'al, the Messenger of Allah said that the cure for ignorance is to ask. Therefore, every single person has to inquire about his situation. And the Sharia has a well-known principle, and this is completely agreed upon from the madhahib, is that when a person is looking for an answer, the person who gives them the answer has to look at the maslahah and the mafsadah, the greater good and the akhaf ad-dararain, the lesser of the two evils. Therefore, let me give you an example. If a person was to read a fatwa from, any kind of fiqh council, and they say, oh look, they're saying that mudaraba musharaka, diminishing musharaka is permissible, and I'm going to go for it. It could be that he doesn't understand the conditions correctly. It could be that he doesn't want to understand them correctly, so he ends up following his desires. The person who is in need is not like the person who wants to get a second or third house so he can make some money. This is why I'm saying here, when it comes to halal mortgages, when it comes to car financing, when it comes to student loans, all of these things need to be reviewed individually. And I personally feel that it's not responsible for a person to say flat out, all of it is halal, go for it, or all of it is haram, don't go for it. On the flip side, haram as well is difficult, is detrimental. With the zakat and sadaqah work that we do here locally, I've seen people who are living way below the line of poverty. And I've even seen a family in a hostel. Imagine that, in a hostel, with drug users and all other kinds of sorts of people. This is because they've been told you're not allowed to get a mortgage, you're not allowed, and they can't find rent, and the council are not giving them any homes or anything like that, so they find themselves in a hostel. So what I'm saying is that every single situation when it comes to finance has to be reviewed, because there are so many different factors and variables which need to be taken into consideration. Is it actually a darura, or is it a haja? Darura is different to haja. When it comes to haja, whatever is haram does not become permissible. But when it comes to darura, and what is darura? A necessity, when a person is going to be harmed in the daruriyat al-khams or sit. And these have been explained elsewhere, so we don't want to get into that right now, but this is just to highlight the point. Normally, things which are haram become halal, and this is something that every common Muslim knows, is that, for example, maita and pig meat is haram, but if a person is diving out of starvation, ad-daruriyat to be muharramat. Therefore, what I'm saying here is that this introduction is really important, because we get this question a lot. Am I allowed to go for such and such finance scheme? And I will say, listen, you need to review your situation, and it's difficult because you have to be honest with yourself, and the person that is giving them the advice has to take into consideration the person's affairs and the consequences as well. Okay, so now that we can understand that, we have to then look at halal mortgages, or what they call halal mortgages. Now, the way that it works is that, say you want to buy a house, and let's keep it simple, £100,000. What they do is they include you in something which is known as al-mudaraba. Al-mudaraba is some kind of a partnership that you have. You have a stake in the house as well as others. There's a partnership. You own some of it, somebody else owns some of it. It could be more than one group of people. This is known as al-mudaraba. And underneath al-mudaraba, you have different types of mudaraba, and one of them is called the diminishing musharaka, diminishing co-ownership. And how that basically works is, let's say you got a house, let's keep it simple, £100,000. £100,000 probably won't buy you much anyway. What they will say is, right, in order for you to become a partner, you need to pay a deposit. How much is your deposit? 5%, 10%, 20%. Now, realistically speaking, 20% of 100,000, 100,000 not going to buy you much anyway, like I said, but 20% of 100,000, £20,000 is a deposit. In order for you to qualify, you need a deposit. Where are you going to get 20 grand from? That's the first thing. Some people might have it, and some people ask for less. So even if they're asking for 5%, let's go with the 5% one. They're asking for £5,000 as a deposit. You then now own £5,000 worth of this £100,000 house, and the other partners have got 95% stake in it. Right. This is known as a partnership. So now, just like in any other business venture, you own some and they own most, and there's nothing wrong with that. What they will then do is they will say, right, what you need to do is pay us rent as well as a monthly stipend, if you want, a monthly amount, so that your stake will increase. So £100,000 house, let's say it's, I don't know, £600, £700 rent, correct me if I'm wrong, but £600, £700 rent, yeah? What they will do is they'll put the rent at 600, 700, and they will add another, I don't know, 300, 400, 500. So they will want from you 1,200 every single month. And as time goes by, your stake will increase. Now here, the ulama, some of them have said that this is not permissible. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "La bay'in or la bay'atayn fil bay'." There can't be two transactions in one. And the Lajna Da'ima have many fatawa, and our Sheikh Khalid Muslih, who is the son-in-law of Sheikh Muhammad Salih Uthaymeen, he's a teacher in the faculty of fiqh, so this is his speciality. He's also a teacher in both of the harams. He said most of these fatawa are old from the Lajna Da'ima. However, the concerns remain, which is that if you are mixing renting with paying of ownership at the same time, this is because now in that same one contract, you've got rental as well as increasing capital and ownership and paying back, if you like. You can't do that. Some of the ulama, the contemporaries, have said yes, it is allowed, because what you're doing is you're paying rent and you are adding to the rent a separate payment which increases your share. So they've put down as a condition that you are paying rent, and that has to be known, and the amount that you are contractually agreeing to has to also be known, which is the extra amount that you're paying. So say, for example, your rent is fixed at 600 and you're going to pay an extra 400, so you're going to pay the bank or the investor £1,000 a month, 400 is for the stake, 600 is for rent, and now that is known. Others have said, and this is, I think it's been mentioned in Mi'yar al-Sharia, a kind of an encyclopedia which talks about trade and transactions, etc. They're basically saying that there has to be a separation with a promise at the end of each separated period. So, for example, you might say, look, you're going to rent for 6 months, 3 months, 9, 10, 12, whatever it might be. At the end of that period, you have the option to increase your stake. If you choose not to, then you continue renting. And that rent goes towards the house as well. That way there is a separation, and those two periods are separated, and you've got the option to buy, and there is no harm in that, inshallah. And this is how, by the way, a lot of car financing, halal car financing schemes work, where basically you would rent for an agreed period of time, 2 years, 4 years, wherever it might be. At the end of that period, you've got the option of returning the car. So you've rented, right? So you are choosing not to opt to buy, and it's just been a lease or rental agreement throughout that whole period. Or at the end of that period, which is 2 years or 4 years or whatever it might be, where you basically say, okay, now I want to change the car and get an upgrade and I'll continue renting. So that's your second option. And then the third option, okay, I'll give you a balloon payment, whatever it might be, 5, 6, 7, 7, wherever it might be, £1,000, and then I'll buy the car with the remaining payment. That makes it easier rather than you spending, I don't know, 10, 15, 20,000 pounds in one go. So that's allowed because the contract has been separated. And with the majority of the ulama, a promise to buy is not trade. It is not a trade agreement. And it's the same thing here. The Malikiya have said a promise to buy is a trade agreement, but they've got details as well. They've basically said al-wa'd, basically when you are promising something, so if I say to you, I promise to buy your car from you tomorrow, right? That with the Malikiya is trade. That with the majority is not trade. Because we've not agreed. We've not agreed the details, we've not agreed the terms, etc. All you're saying is that there is a promise there. Whether you can break promises or not, that's separate. But here we're talking about whether it's a legal trade or agreement. The Malikiya have got details in this. I know I'm digressing, but it's just for the sake of benefit. They have said if it includes the hukuk of the people. If it doesn't include the hukuk of people, then that promise is not binding. So if there is no financial haqq involved or any rights of you that are involved, then inshallah, the Malikiya have said that there's no harm in a person not carrying out with that promise. Therefore, the correct opinion, this is the view of the majority, and this is how they've gone about it Islamically now in the world of finance, is that they have said, let's separate the contract, rental period, and then an option period, or an option clause, and then you can carry on with whatever period that you want afterwards. I'm not sure if that's here with this one here. Here, all I can see is rental, and the option, actually I think it is, I think they've mentioned stake ownership, and you've got an option at every period to buy. That's fine then, inshallah, if that's there. Another concern that the ulama have talked about when it comes to halal investments is repossession. Now, this is connected to the mas'ala as to who actually owns the item and the commodity and the thing that you are saying that you're going to purchase. Give you an example. I want to buy a house. I've entered into a partnership. If my name is not on the deeds, then what am I? Am I a partner? Am I a customer? Therefore, the majority have said, no, if you are a partner, then you have to be registered as a partner. Okay. If you are not, then that is not partnership, and then that has nullified one of the conditions, and then that kind of a halal investment is no longer permissible. Okay, if you are now on the deeds, what if you do not pay what you said you were going to pay? Can I repossess? The answer is no, you can't repossess something that you own. If I've got 5% in the house and they've got 95%, they can't take away my 5% also. But this is what you will find in certain mortgages. What I see here in this one is that they do not repossess, but they will give you time. And if they feel that you've had enough time, from what I understand, Allah knows best, because here again, like I said, everything needs to be reviewed. Your situation as the consumer, but also the contract itself. On the website, they're not going to give you the contract. They're just going to give you a rough outline on how it works. But as they say, and forgive the phrase that they use, the devil's in the detail. As in, the way that they word it could be a fine line between what is halal and haram. So what seems to be the case here is that, it seems okay from what I can see, is that they will not repossess the house. They will give you ample period of time, and this is wajib with the Hanabila, mustahab with the majority. And when they feel that, okay, it's not been fulfilled, they will probably liquidate your asset, and they'll basically say, okay, we're going to sell the house and give you 5,000 back. And that's permissible because it's not worked. The partnership's not worked. The flip side to that as well, the ulama have said, from the conditions of partnerships is that you have haqq al-shuf'ah. Haqq al-shuf'ah basically now means is that now this is where I feel is a bit, I'm not sure if I've understood this incorrectly. They're saying here that the people that are buying the house are a pool of investors. Islamically speaking, if you are in a partnership, you have a say as to who your partner is. And if one of your partners, or your only partner, wants to sell his share, you have the haqq of preemption, which is you have most right. You are given dibs, basically. And some of the ulama have put this down as a condition. If you have not been given dibs, then that is not permissible. And that could be a condition which nullifies the trade agreement and the contract. So it works both ways with this one here, repossession and shuf'ah. Another major concern, and I know I've been talking for about 15 minutes here, but there are a lot of things. And another major one though, so we'll just go through some of the major ones, is daman ala ra's al-mal. Now I don't see that in this one either. And this one for me actually seems quite promising, but I mean, you can't place a ruling on it until we look at the affairs of the person that wants to invest. And again, like I said, looking at the contract in detail. Daman ra's al-mal basically means that if a person, now this is really important because what's happened previously is that investors and banks, they have secured their investment. So now let's go back to our model. You've put down 5,000, they've got 95,000. Quite often the investor will say, our 95,000 is secured. You owe us 95 grand, irrespective of whether the house price goes up or down. And this is known as daman ra's al-mal. Basically meaning, if you've entered into a partnership, you should be equal in profit and loss. Obviously equal to the amount that you invest. So now, if the house is worth 100,000 today, and it is worth 50,000 tomorrow, your share in it is now 2.5 because you invested 5,000, and their share in it is now 47.5. But that's not what normally happens. What they say is, look, we're going to invest 95,000 in our model here, and we're not going to lose that 95,000. You owe us 95, or whatever the case. And that is not permissible, and that is akin to riba. So if I say to you, you owe me 95 grand, right? And if it goes up or if it goes down, if it goes up, then that 95 is increased. And if there is a loss, like I said, it's not exactly riba in all circumstances, but it could be. And if there's a loss, they say, no, we're not making a loss. Then that's not fair. And that mudaraba now, the partnership, where's the partnership gone if you're not going to make loss equally? That's another issue. Another issue now, this is the issue of riba, and this is an issue where the ulama have differed a great deal, the contemporaries, which is charging a penalty fee. Are you allowed to charge penalty fees? We've talked about this separately, and the answer is no. And the reason why is because if you've got an investment and you owe rent, or you owe a particular amount that you are supposed to pay as a stakeholder, and if you fail to meet that payment, they will charge you extra, even if they call it an admin fee. Then this is riba. If I owe you 1,000 for this month and I don't pay, and they say, okay, well, you've got another 5 days to pay, and if you don't, it's going to go up to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's riba, isn't it? Another issue from the conditions is that they have said maintenance and responsibility has to be equally shared. Now, this has not existed previously from what I can see, and I'm not sure if it's here in this one either. I don't know, I know this is haram and we're not talking about it, but building insurance, and I don't think by law in this country, and I think places in like Europe and the States, etc., they will not give you a mortgage until you've got building insurance. So there's no way around it. If a person, again, this goes back to the very topic, the essence of the topic and the introduction. Do you need to involve yourself in these kind of things? If the answer is yes, then Allah knows best. If the answer is no, do you want to expose yourself to such a large debt? Do you want to involve yourself in things which is an issue of ijtihad, which could potentially be haram according to certain ulama? And to be honest, you're not going to satisfy every single scholar's demands unless if something changed drastically. And I don't see that happening because of the way that we have our financial structure in the world that we live in today. But the point that we're making here is that insurance is one of those things that you might need to take out necessarily. Now here, this is an example, if you are in a partnership, all responsibility has to be shared equally. So if you've got 5%, they've got 95%, you've got 5% responsibility in this building. That includes insurance, that includes any other maintenance fees, etc. But what they often do is they probably lump those fees upon the tenant himself, which for me sometimes is kind of like a giveaway where they're basically saying, okay, well, it's a partnership, but it's not really a partnership. We're selling you something. And we're making it out like it's a partnership, but you're the one that's benefiting and we're making money off it. And I don't want to make it sound like that because it's not helpful. I do understand that Muslims are trying, and this is why I've been reluctant to put this out there as well. But all I'm saying is that we need an answer, and I just want people to be careful. Here, the point of me making this discussion, not that I'm any kind of authority, but this discussion is here so that people can know what their rights are and where their boundaries are when it comes to the Sharia. These are some of the major affairs. I mean, some of them have not been mentioned here in this audio. I mean, there are other things, such as a very important one, the contract. The contract has to stipulate in detail time periods and percentages. It has to be very detailed in that. And if it is not, then it is not permissible. Also, the right to withdraw has to be there. In certain mortgages, it doesn't exist. Once you've committed, you're committed. And if you want to withdraw, you have to sell the house and etc. But if it's a partnership, then there has to be a right to withdraw from both parties. You have to be able to do what it is that you want. Some mortgages will basically say, well, we'll give you a mortgage, but you can't rent it on. Now, I know we've talked about this before, and some of the ulama have put down a condition that, yes, you can take a mortgage as long as it's for personal use and not for... It's the house that you're living in, basically, and there's no other means for you to get a home, or there's no other living accommodation options that you've got. But connected to that, what they have said is, if you own the house and you're a partner in the home ownership, surely with your share you are able to do what it is that you want. If they've put down conditions saying, no, you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that, that could also interfere with the validity. These are some of the concerns that I've seen from the senior scholars and different fiqh councils when it comes to Islamic finance contracts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants us all tawfiq and success, and that He gives us barakah in what He gives us, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces for us that which we give up for His sake. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.